Today, so I flew across the country to be here this morning. We'll be flying back this afternoon. We're here to introduce a new report from the American Association of University Professors, the AAUP, which documents in great detail an unprecedented statewide assault on academic freedom, university governance, quality higher education, and arguably knowledge itself. I'm going to make some remarks about the report, which I co-chaired the committee that prepared the report and was one of its principal authors, and then I'll be introducing additional speakers, after which we will be taking questions. The report has 5 major conclusions. The first of which is that academic freedom, tenure, and shared governance in Florida's public colleges and universities currently face a politically and ideologically driven assault unparalleled in U.S. history, which, if sustained, threatens the very survival of meaningful higher education in the state, with dire implications for the entire country. I won't go into the other conclusions or the details of the report, as the lengthy report speaks well for itself. But I want to speak, before introducing our other speakers, about 2 things. 1, how the report was made, and 2, what I believe it contributes that is unique. First of all, let me acknowledge the hard work of my co-chair, Professor Afshan Jaffer, Professor of Sociology at Connecticut College, who could not be here today because it's her last day of class. And to the other members of the committee, Devarian Baldwin in American Studies at Trinity College in Connecticut, Emily Ho, Professor of Law at the University of Cincinnati, Anil Kalhan, Professor of Law at Drexel University, Brian Turner, Professor of Political Science at Randolph-Macon College in Virginia, and lastly but not least, Professor Charles Toombs, Professor of Africana Studies at San Diego State University, who's also president of the California Faculty Association, which is in the midst, by the way, of a series of one-day strikes this week, even as I speak. In preparing this report, we interviewed more than 65 individuals, and in May we released a briefer preliminary report. But we continued our work throughout the summer and into the fall. We began this effort in January, and people have asked me, why did the report take so long? And there were 2 basic reasons. First of all, there were, I'm happy to report, large numbers of faculty members and others in the state of Florida who wanted to speak with the committee, some of which by the end we were still unable to connect with. But more important, I think, is because the attack on higher education in Florida is ongoing. Representative Escamani, who will be speaking later, just informed me that the Board of Governors is now considering a move to remove the discipline of sociology from general education, which could be a death blow to that very important discipline. What does this report contribute? For one thing, much of it is based, I will acknowledge, on work already done by journalists in and out of the state. But our report, I believe, is the first and only place right now where you can find in one place the entire story of what has happened to higher education in the past few years under the leadership of Governor DeSantis and his legislative supermajority. It's also the only place where these attacks are measured against widely acknowledged professional standards developed over more than a century by the AAUP and other leading bodies in higher education. And third and finally, it is the one place where you will hear overwhelmingly the voices of faculty themselves. And that brings me to my final point before I introduce the other speakers, which is something of a personal note. I've now been involved with the AAUP for over a decade, and I was chair of its Committee on Academic Freedom and Tenure for 9 years. I participated in a good number of AAUP investigations, including all 3 of the special investigations that the AAUP has conducted in this decade. And I will have to say that nothing I have been involved in has moved me, both frightening me and inspiring me, than what I have learned and seen in talking to more than 65 faculty members in the state of Florida. And I hope that those who read the report, and I hope many, many people will, not only in the media, but in the general public, especially in Florida, but not only in Florida, that you will have some of the same feeling that I had. So now to turn to our next speakers, I want to introduce first Professor Matthew Latta, who is Professor of Music at Florida State University and also President of the Florida State Chapter of the United Faculty of Florida. Matthew.
Thank you, Hank, and on behalf of faculty throughout the state, we'd like to thank the AAUP for taking the time to spotlight this issue, to the, Irene, the president of the organization, and to everyone who has made this possible. I'd like to provide a little bit of perspective from the point of view of those who are directly affected by what we are expected to do. We're being affected and challenged to figure out just what the hell is going on. Last year's SB 266, among other attacks on academic freedom, requires that history be taught in a certain way as defined by the winning political party of the moment. This impacts instruction in all disciplines from business to dance. However, this poorly written piece of legislation makes demands but does not specify how we are to meet them. We have no specific guidelines from the legislature. We have no specific guidelines from the Board of Governors. We have no specific guidelines from our respective boards of trustees, and we have no respective guidelines from our administrations. We're supposed to make decisions on how we teach and the vocabulary we use based on what ifs. Administration tells us to stay the course because the policy hasn't really changed, but read the law, and the law is the law. Faculty are altering their syllabi, eliminating readings on certain subjects, moderating their vocabulary, and fearing for their jobs. Faculty are not the only ones involved. This also involves our graduate assistants, who are privileged and empowered to have a major effect on our undergraduate students. And I'd like to introduce Andre Ivey, who is a graduate assistant at Florida State, who can briefly talk about that.
Thank you. So I'm Andre Ivey, and I'm a graduate assistant at Florida State University in the Department of Sociology. In the last year, I have witnessed my own classmates panic over this challenge to academic freedom. I've also witnessed, administrators panic over the decrease in enrollment. And through all of this, what I've kind of come to understand is that with these challenges to academic freedom, they not only threaten the current faculty in the current situation, but they also threaten the careers of future faculty in the likelihood of these individuals wanting to enter academia. Not only that, but wanting to enter academia in the state of Florida. Thank you.
So they're feeling the same fear that we are, and that was exactly the goal of the folks who put this legislation forward. They want to create an atmosphere of fear that results in self-censorship and will chill free speech, and their tactics are working. Faculty are starting to vote with their feet. They are leaving our institutions in record numbers, and that's across the board, from physicists to sociologists to biologists to lawyers to musicians. Recruiting quality faculty is becoming more and more difficult as well, as particularly in competitive fields, people are looking down at Florida and saying, not now, I don't think that's the right place for me and my family. It's becoming increasingly hard to recruit the very best and brightest graduate students for exactly the same reason. These are competitive searches and we don't measure up. It's interesting that FSU dropped 5 points in the rankings this year. Somehow, however, this is considered a victory that we are losing good professors and good graduate students. Somehow this is considered a victory by those who would put politics over persuasion, by those who would put demagoguery over debate, and as at New College, would create boards of trustees composed of right-wing activists, many from out of state, who neither understand nor care about Florida, but shut themselves in a room and make decisions based on political expediency, money, largesse from the legislature, and their own self-serving agendas. Facts and results don't seem to matter. It's bad enough this happens in NCAA football, and we're hurt. But it is beyond infuriating to see a narrow political agenda threatening a state university system that has been called the best in the nation. Like so much of what has come out of the recent legislature, these attacks on academic freedom are based on misinformation and, to be direct, outright lies. Many of those who attack academic freedom have no real experience on campus and neither understand nor care to understand what really happens in the classroom. Supporters of SB 266 and similar bills create the straw man of the entitled academic supported by the taxpayers who sits sucking from the public trough and does nothing else. In fact, we are evaluated every year. We are required to produce results both inside and out of the classroom, or we will be disciplined. People claim that we are imposing our political views on students because they're terrified that when presented with facts and forums for discussion, young people may not end up agreeing with them. Because they cannot convince people of the power of their politics, they are moving to impose their political will on institutions by attacking the very environment that, if they could demonstrate that their views were sound, would support them. We are charged with the task of providing our students with facts and challenges so that they can figure out who they are and make their own opinions. This is what really happens in the classroom. Again, whether it's chemistry, physics, sociology, nursing, criminology, or art. Facts are facts. They're not inconvenient. They're just facts. Academic freedom, the freedom to follow the facts and to teach and challenge our students, regardless of what political party happens to be in charge, is vital to maintaining not only the integrity of our colleges and universities, but the kind of dialogue that makes democracy possible. Thomas Jefferson famously stated that an enlightened electorate is indispensable for the proper functioning of a republic. Jefferson, by the way, was a slaveholder, but we're not supposed to talk about that anymore. However, Thomas Jefferson had a point. Maybe we should listen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matthew and Andre. I want to just add a brief thing. One of the main points in our report is that faculty members are leaving Florida or planning to leave Florida, and that searches are failing to find adequate replacements. And I want to stress Matthew's point that this is not just the so-called supposedly woke faculty from the supposedly woke disciplines. It is scientists, it is business professors, it is everyone. Our next speaker is Adela Gadimi, who is the organizing director for the United Faculty of Florida.
I want to start by saying thank you again to the AAUP for doing this important work of creating this report, because across the state we are truly in a fight for our survival. The reality of what's happening here in Florida is that the fate of public sector unions hangs in the balance, and faculty members, graduate assistants, and librarians that make up UFF are all on the front lines of saving higher education in our state. Public education is not a political pawn to be played with. High-quality public education is a public right and a public good. It has long been something that has been fought for, and that the residents of our state overwhelmingly want to see remain intact. These attacks threaten the world-class public higher education system we have, seeking instead to transform it into an indoctrination engine of the state. Free speech, intellectual property, and the diversity of course offerings that students can access are all under attack, and if the DeSantis administration has its way, all of that would go away. We are currently organizing for our survival. We're literally in the midst of organizing on multiple fronts to combat the attacks on academic freedom, to preserve the welfare and freedom of Floridians who depend on our colleges and universities. To go further, our union members are often number one on the front lines of ensuring that our higher education institutions actually live up to the mission of the organization. Beyond preserving education, we need to win our survival to ensure we can continue to fight back against the rising tides of authoritarianism in our state that continue to grow at an alarming rate. Democracy, human rights, academic freedom, and personal freedoms are all on the line. And these issues are not going to stay contained within the borders of Florida. We're already witnessing that the oppressive laws being passed here are being used as examples in other states who are now modeling after the anti-education authoritarian behaviors we are forced to contend with here. What we are facing is an authoritarian takeover. This is duly an attack on public sector unions, but also on our acclaimed public education system. This really should be a warning call to the rest of the country, because it's time to be paying attention and realize that the gift of democracy that we have been living with is not guaranteed. And if we do not actively combat the authoritarian forces at play, attacking education is going to continue to be an issue we're going to continue to face. And it's only the first step in a downward spiral for the direction we will go in as a society. We're not going to surrender to the erasure of freedom of thought and freedom of speech, which should be guaranteed for all, not only those who agree with the governor. So politicians need to get back to governing for the people and leave the management of classrooms and curriculum to the experts who are engaging in the cutting-edge research and who teach most up-to-date ideas and methods to meet learners where they are. So this is paramount to preserving our democracy and enabling the next generation of leaders with the critical tools that they will need to advance us forward. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Professor Irene Mulvey, Professor of Mathematics at Fairfield University in Connecticut and President of the American Association of University Professors.
Thank you, Hans. Thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you to Representative Escamani for helping us get the word out. We're here because what has happened in Florida's colleges and universities over the last couple of years is a tragedy for Florida's students and their families. How do we know? Because of the AAUP's report on academic freedom in Florida. You heard what they did, and you heard how they did it from Professor Reichman, who co-chaired the investigative committee with Professor Jafar, and a dream team of volunteer faculty members from the AAUP who care so deeply about higher education that they took on this enormous project, investigated and worked for almost a year in order to produce this definitive and comprehensive report. Let's be clear. This is a thoroughly researched, well-documented piece of investigation, research, and writing that goes beyond anything anyone else is doing. The journalism, the pieces have been great to document individual incidents, and many are referenced in here, but only the American Association of University Professors produces something like this. And by the way, it is a compelling read. It's not a soundbite, it's not a pithy tweet begging for likes, it's a definitive record of what happened and for posterity, detailing, based on investigation, fact-finding and evidence, what happened here, and an explanation of why it's so bad for Florida's students, Florida's families, and Florida's faculty. Here's why. Learning new stuff is one of the joys of being human. College students should have the right to learn the subjects they want to study, taught by professors who are experts in those subjects, and those professors get to determine the curriculum, the readings, the materials, and the methods of instructions. That's how college works. Partisan politicians in Florida have decided that it's their prerogative to sharply limit the choices and the opportunities for Florida's college students. They've decided that the state can decide what you're allowed to learn, and the state can censor what they don't want you to learn. This is unacceptable in America, and it is profoundly unfair to Florida students. Families in Florida should expect Florida public colleges to provide unlimited opportunities for their families to expand their horizons. But your governor's agenda is to limit opportunities, and his policies are driving high-quality faculty from all disciplines to flee Florida, either because the working conditions or the living conditions have become unbearable. For sure, the quality of education is going to suffer. Families and faculty Colleges rely on people operating in good faith, according to established norms. And yet, AAUP's report details the stacking of boards and presidencies with political operatives that have little to no higher education experience, people beholden to the governor, not higher ed. And yet, AAUP's report details attacks on accrediting agencies. Why? Because accrediting agencies are holding those people and their institutions accountable to the high standards that have made higher ed globally preeminent. They gotta go. And yet, AAUP's report details attacks on tenure. Why? Because tenured faculty are able to speak truth to power and point out unqualified administrative and board appointments and inappropriate political intrusion. One of the most nefarious things that the AA's report details is the governor's attacks on unions. A strong union for faculty is a powerful weapon against political intrusion. Faculty unions in Florida, here they are, they've been leading the fight effectively against this political intrusion. And rather than engage with these faculty unions in order to make higher ed better, DeSantis is forcing them to fight for their very survival. SB 256 is a union-busting bill that requires an outrageously high level of participation for a union, or else it risks decertification. If you're a faculty member in Florida, join the union. Get your colleagues to join the union and get involved with the union. That's an important place to build power to fight back, and DeSantis' policies have made it easier than ever for them to take that power away from you. All of this is watering down what has been a top-tier public education system. I haven't mentioned New College of Florida, but there's a play-by-play analysis of what happened in the report. Florida is ground zero, but these attacks are spreading. American higher education is the envy of the world. Let's start there and ask why they're doing what they're doing. But right now, we're facing an existential threat due to partisan political interference straight out of any authoritarian's playbook. Read our report and take action. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irene. And now for our final speaker, I'm really pleased and proud to introduce Representative Ana V. Escamani, a member of the Florida House of Representatives who has been in the thick of the battle to defend higher education in Florida for some time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I first just want to say a huge thank you to our amazing advocates and academic leaders who have traveled from across the country to be with us today. We need the reinforcement, so thank you for making the time, especially during a busy holiday season, to be with us here in the state capitol. My name is Ana V. Escamani. I'm so proud to serve District 42 in the Florida State House Legislature, and of course to be a passionate advocate for both academic freedom and the power of higher education. Right now, we are at a precipice when it comes to the future of higher education in Florida. This was mentioned already, but I really want to emphasize just the incredible transformational effect of public higher education and how it is a tool for the public good, for the collective good. Higher education equips individuals with specialized knowledge and skills in various fields. This expertise is essential for addressing complex societal challenges and contributes to the overall advancement of knowledge. Whatever the field, it is transformational. Universities cultivate critical thinking skills, teaching students to analyze information, question assumptions, and solve problems, skills that we could desperately use here in the Florida legislature. Higher education institutions are also hubs of research and innovation, not only helping to bring cures for things like cancer, but in ensuring that we're bringing grant dollars to our state institutions, that we are shining a light on some of our most wicked problems and ensuring that no person is left behind. We also know that folks who seek higher education are more likely to participate in civic activities, vote, and contribute to overall community development. No wonder there is an attack in higher education. When people have more information, people will vote. We also know that higher education is a powerful tool to breaking the cycle of poverty, especially public education. That's why I always stress that every culture war really is a class war. And I look back at my own childhood, growing up in Orlando as a daughter of immigrants, in a working class family. My parents came from different parts of Iran, but met each other working at the same donut shop in Orlando. My dad was able to go to the University of Central Florida while raising 3 kids. My mom worked at Kmart. And I have many memories as a young girl playing at UCF, looking for the kids' books in the library. Of course, those didn't exist, but I will tell you that when my dad was able to get a degree in electrical engineering, that ensured that he could have a job, which made sure he had private insurance, which could cover the cost of raising a family. And though my mom passed away in 2004 when I was 13 years old, she instilled in me a deep, deep commitment to higher education. And myself, my twin sister, and my big brother would all go to UCF, graduate ourselves with honors, and I'm now getting my PhD in public administration with a goal of defending prospectus in January and dissertation in the summer of 2024. So when I say that higher education is transformational, you can just look at stories like mine. That is the power of higher education, to ensure that we are disrupting the cycle of poverty, that we are allowing families to have a chance to succeed, and that little brown girls like me can see ourselves in our text. I'm a proud graduate of Women and Gender Studies. I know the transformational power of these programs, allowing me to read stories of Iranian women fighting for their rights, to volunteer at organizations like Dress for Success that help women make a tailored transition to the workforce while reading about the challenges women face who are just as impacted. And then meeting those women while I'm helping them at a nonprofit get the resources they need to get that job. Again, that is the power of higher education. I am proud of my degrees from the University of Central Florida, but we want that pride to be sustained for generations to come. Many individuals have expressed a concern of the value of their degrees here in Florida, with also many parents reconsidering their prepay plans, reconsidering if they want their child to go to a Florida public university. As one professor said in this landmark report, in general, we have a state where cronyism and pay to play is strongly at work. And you don't have to go that far to see those examples. You can find those examples across the state and especially at New College. The claims by the far right and my colleagues here in legislature that higher education is indoctrinating students is projection. And you can see that taking place in the K-12 environment and in higher education. Any accusations of indoctrination, folks need to look in the mirror and self-reflect, because they are the ones who are pushing their propaganda into our classrooms. We are losing talent in the Sunshine State. We are losing the top talent of students and faculty. This is bigger than grifters at New College getting gluttonous salaries, bigger than the partisan rhetoric out of this legislature. We're talking about an erosion of higher education that will not only make Florida less competitive nationally, but it will lead to our students not knowing their power, not being prepared to work and contribute to a global environment. It also, of course, impacts our accreditation. If we lose accreditation in our universities, we lose the ability to tap into federal programs, including student loan programs and so forth. It would be decimating the entire higher educational environment. Many students would no longer have access, and of course our degrees would become worthless. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the last Board of Governors meeting that took place at my alma mater, UCF, which I was there. They cut off public testimony against the ban on diversity, equity, and inclusion within 15 minutes. And of course, it was also during this meeting where our educational commissioner filed an amendment to remove sociology as a general education course. I took sociology as a general education course. My twin sister did too, and she actually double majored in sociology. Sociology is an incredibly important discipline that helps us to better understand the world around us, and it leads to many fields, whether you continue in academia or become a social worker, a mental counselor, perhaps you work in drug and substance abuse disorder spaces. Sociology is a very important discipline, and if you remove it as a general education course, you are essentially decimating this department, decimating this program. The next BOG meeting will be here in Tallahassee at FSU, January 24th and 25th, and I do encourage folks to be there and to show your opposition to these rules. I stand for the protection of higher education. I stand for academic freedom because I know the transformational power of public higher education that it has in society here in the state, and how essential it is for the health and well-being of all Floridians. Even if you don't go to a Florida university or college, or you went to a university and college somewhere else, or you never went to university or college. Everyone benefits from strong higher educational public institutions. This report is essential to understanding the fight we face and what we can do about it. So I thank everyone for being here, and we will take some questions if folks have it. Thank you so much.
Representative Escamani.